A young woman disappeared after a seemingly innocent meeting, but what happened that night shocked the nation. Throughout this story, we will reveal every detail of the case, from Mackenzie's incredible life to the dark secrets of the man she met. Stay with me until the end to understand how the investigation uncovered this terrifying plot. And subscribe to the channel now so you don't miss a single detail of this true story that will keep you captivated from start to finish.
If possible, have a wellness check done on my daughter, and I've been trying to get a hold of her, and her phone just tends to go to voicemail. I was just wondering if I could have somebody maybe go by her house and check on her.
In June 2019, Mackenzie Lueck disappeared after being dropped off at a park by a rideshare driver. No one knew it yet, but she had arranged to meet someone there. When friends and family noticed that she had stopped responding to messages and had missed important appointments, the police were contacted. This was how a case began that would gradually reveal shocking details. Mackenzie Lueck was born on March 8, 1996, in El Segundo, a quiet city in the Los Angeles area of California. She grew up in a loving family environment with her parents, Greg and Diana Lueck, and 3 siblings, 1 older and 2 younger. Although she was raised in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, religion was never the center of her identity. Her faith existed, but it didn't guide all of her choices. Still, she maintained a good relationship with her family and lived a peaceful life without causing trouble for anyone. During her teenage years, Mackenzie excelled in several areas, especially sports. As a public school student, she found a great passion in swimming and dedicated herself to the school team. Additionally, she was very involved in social causes. Along with friends, she founded a club focused on breast cancer awareness. This initiative reflected her generosity and compassionate spirit, while also shaping her interest in women's rights issues. Mackenzie's involvement in social projects became an important asset for building her college application, especially at a pivotal moment in her life. In the United States, extracurricular activities often carry significant weight in admissions processes, sometimes more than grades themselves. After graduating high school in 2014, Mackenzie moved to another state to continue her studies. She enrolled at the University of Utah and chose kinesiology as her major. On campus, she joined the Alpha Chi Omega sorority and quickly became a welcoming figure for new members. Other students saw her as a role model, someone with natural leadership, empathy, and a willingness to help. Those who knew Mackenzie described her as outgoing, energetic, and extremely sociable. Perhaps this altruistic spirit explained why she naturally inspired a sense of leadership among her peers. This trait, in fact, had been evident since her school days. Despite this maturity recognized by many, Mackenzie also enjoyed typical experiences for her age. She liked going out with friends, visiting bars, having wine, and having fun. She maintained regular contact with friends in California and continued to pursue her personal interests. She also had a strong curiosity about politics. Upon arriving in Salt Lake City, she registered as a Republican, but in October 2018, she changed her affiliation to the U.S. Independent Party. In early 2019, at 23 years old, she remained deeply engaged in volunteer work, focusing on domestic violence prevention and celebrating the anniversary of women's right to vote on social media, a clear sign of her commitment to women's rights causes. Even while involved in complex issues and significant social projects, Mackenzie remained the caring, kind, and attentive young woman she had always been. She loved animals, valued her friendships, and warmly welcomed new sorority members, maintaining the same essence she had since adolescence. Mackenzie's plan was to graduate college in 2020 and pursue a career in the medical field. However, an obstacle would soon appear in her path. Before that, it's worth noting that she had always been a joyful, lively, and energetic young woman. Still, like anyone else, she faced her first major moment of sadness during college. While studying in Utah, she received news that her grandmother had passed away. Heartbroken, she traveled back to her hometown in California to attend the funeral and support her family. On June 17, 2019, after saying goodbye to her relatives, she boarded a flight back to Salt Lake City. The farewells were emotional, but everyone tried to remain composed in the face of recent loss. Mackenzie didn't tell anyone, but she had arranged a meeting as soon as she arrived. No one could have imagined that the hug at the airport would be the last. As days passed with no word from their daughter, Mackenzie's distraught father contacted the Salt Lake City Police Department on June 20th and reported her missing. The investigation began immediately. Authorities reviewed airport camera footage and confirmed that Mackenzie had indeed landed and gotten into a rideshare car. The next step was to locate the driver and find out where she had been dropped off. When located, the driver told investigators that he had dropped Mackenzie off at a park called Hatch Park around 3 a.m. Upon leaving the car at the park, Mackenzie encountered a man she seemed to know. The rideshare driver reported that she got out of the vehicle and approached him as if they had already arranged the meeting. After that, the driver left, and that was the last time she was seen by anyone familiar. From this point, the investigation became urgent. Agents analyzed Mackenzie's phone records and confirmed that she had indeed been at Hatch Park at the time indicated by the driver. During the examination of electronic data, they discovered that she had exchanged multiple messages with an unknown man before arriving at the location. The last message was sent at 2:58 a.m., shortly before her phone stopped transmitting data entirely. With this information, the police moved to identify the recipient of the messages. Investigators reviewed the man's phone history and discovered that his device had also been at Hatch Park during the same period Mackenzie's phone went inactive, corroborating the driver's account. Next, they tracked the man's movements immediately after the meeting. Data showed that he left the park and went to a residence on Fair Park Street, arriving shortly after 3:07 a.m. The short distance between the locations made such a trip plausible in such a short time. The police then finally identified the mysterious man with whom Mackenzie had been exchanging messages, 31-year-old Ayola Ajaya. Based on technological evidence and the witness statement, investigators began to consider him a central figure in the case. Still, they needed concrete proof to clarify what had happened that night. Detectives went to question Ayola Ajaya about Mackenzie's disappearance, as there was clear evidence that he had met her at the park before she vanished. During the interrogation, the man denied any involvement in Mackenzie's disappearance. However, his answers drew the investigators' attention as they noticed inconsistencies in his story. On June 26th, after gathering sufficient evidence, including the fact that he had been the last known person to see Mackenzie and the cross-referencing of both phones' location data, authorities obtained a search warrant for his home. When executing the warrant, police began searching the backyard and the residence. There, they found a patch of soil that appeared to have been recently disturbed. Upon closer inspection, they discovered human remains and several damaged objects, including a cell phone. The condition in which everything was found indicated that something serious had occurred in that area. Investigators then interviewed neighborhood residents. Some reported seeing the man digging in the yard on June 17th and 18th, precisely the period when Mackenzie had returned to Salt Lake City. Neighbors also mentioned noticing a small makeshift fire in the same area, along with the strong smell of burning material. At the time, none of this had seemed suspicious enough for anyone to call the police, but given the young woman's disappearance, the accounts took on new significance. With this information, investigators decided to examine the suspect's car. The vehicle emitted a strong smell of gasoline. Inside, they found a container similar to those usually used to store fuel. Records showed that on the morning of June 17th, he had been seen at a gas station purchasing gasoline, the same type of container found in the vehicle. This evidence further reinforced the emerging line of investigation. The evidence began to accumulate consistently. Surveillance cameras at the gas station recorded Ayola Ajaya buying a red gas can and filling it with gasoline on the morning of June 17th. Investigators concluded that this fuel could have been used to destroy objects and evidence in his backyard. The agents also discovered that on the night he met with Mackenzie, Ajayi had turned off the security cameras at his own residence. The fact that he disabled the surveillance system precisely during that period raised strong suspicions that he wanted to prevent any record of what happened there. The next step was to search areas near the residence. In a nearby river, investigators found a University of Utah ID card and clothing later identified by the family as belonging to Mackenzie. Shortly after, the Utah Forensic Laboratory confirmed through DNA analysis that some of the human material found in the yard matched the young woman's genetic profile. With this, the main line of investigation began to indicate that Ajayi could have taken Mackenzie's life in the early hours of June 17th and tried to destroy the remains and personal belongings in an improvised fire. Even so, many points remained unexplained, including the reason for the meeting and the nature of the relationship between the two. On June 28th, Iola Ajayi was arrested and formally charged with kidnapping, homicide, and desecration of a corpse. However, a crucial element was still missing, locating Mackenzie's complete body, since only fragments had been found up to that point. Regarding this discovery, two versions circulated publicly. In one, after being arrested, Ajayi allegedly told his lawyers where the body was. In another version, the police did not need this information because they analyzed his phone's location records and identified that on June 25th, between 2:30 p.m. and 4:30 p.m., the device had been in the Logan Canyon area, a remote and difficult-to-access location. Based on these clues, on July 3rd, search teams went to Logan Canyon. Investigators combed trails, areas far from the road, and regions densely covered with bushes and trees. In one of these heavily vegetated areas, they noticed a patch of earth that appeared to have been recently disturbed, a detail that immediately drew attention. When investigators began digging the disturbed patch of earth in Logan Canyon, they discovered a grave. Inside, they found the remains of a woman. The body was severely damaged, and the position in which it was found indicated that the victim had been restrained before her death. The police quickly confirmed through forensic examinations that it was Mackenzie Lueck. Despite the condition of the body, experts were able to identify signs that Mackenzie had been violently assaulted. Subsequent examinations revealed a significant head injury, which caused internal bleeding and was considered the official cause of death. Definitive confirmation came through DNA testing, eliminating any doubt about her identity. With all the evidence gathered, the traces found in the suspect's yard, the phone records, the personal items located near his home, and now the discovery of the body, the investigation consistently pointed to Iola Ajayi as responsible for the crime. From that point on, it remained to understand who he was, how he had met Mackenzie, and what had motivated their encounter. The investigation then turned to Iola Ajayi's personal life and revealed that he was originally from Nigeria. The investigation also began to delve into Iola Ajayi's past. It was discovered that he had moved to the United States years earlier with the intention of studying in Utah. Records indicate that in 2012, he attempted to enroll at the University of Utah, but ultimately did not continue there. Documents cited issues related to his visa status, and there were also administrative reports regarding a missing piece of equipment on campus at that time. This set of circumstances suggested that he had already been involved in some problematic incidents in the past. After that, his history became less clear for a period. There was no detailed public record of where he had been or what he had done immediately following these events, which created some uncertainty for investigators trying to reconstruct his trajectory. What was established is that a few years later, in 2015, he returned to the United States with permanent resident status. How he exactly obtained this status was not publicly clarified, but officially it was recorded that he had acquired the documentation. From that point on, Ajayi began working in technology-related fields, holding different positions in various companies. Records indicate that he attempted to study computer science, although he did not complete the program. He also served for a period in the National Guard. For investigators, it was striking to observe how his professional life appeared to have developed relatively steadily despite previous incidents that had drawn attention. During the investigation, Ajayi's lawyer, Neil Hamilton, stated that his client had told him that he met Mackenzie in 2018 through a dating website. According to the lawyer, the platform catered to people interested in relationships within specific arrangements, such as those between older, financially established men and younger women, so-called sugar dating arrangements. Police confirmed that both Mackenzie and Ajayi had active accounts on the same website. The recovered messages showed that the two had been talking and that at some point they had discussed the possibility of meeting in person. The designated meeting point would be Hatch Park, the same place where the rideshare driver had dropped Mackenzie off in the early hours of her disappearance. Despite this, Ajayi claimed that he didn't know what Mackenzie looked like physically and that, according to him, he had never arranged a concrete meeting with her. This version, however, clashed with the evidence already gathered by investigators, especially the cross-referencing of both cell phones' location data, which placed them in the same place at the same time, just minutes before Mackenzie vanished. As a result, the investigation believed it had uncovered an important lead to answer the remaining questions: how the two met, why they met that night, and what exactly happened after Mackenzie got out of the car at the park. When investigators finally gained access to Ajayi's phone, they found exactly what he had insisted on denying. There were photos of Mackenzie, along with numerous conversations between them. This completely dismantled the story he had been repeating, that he didn't know who she was, had never arranged anything, and hadn't even recognized her face. The messages made it clear that he knew exactly who he was talking to and that the meeting had indeed been arranged. On June 26th, during a new search of the suspect's residence, the police also seized his computer. A few days later, on July 2nd, the forensic lab began analyzing its contents. And this opened a new dimension of the case. The experts found extremely serious material involving minors, recorded in situations of exploitation. It was yet another indication of the disturbing nature of his behavior. As Mackenzie's case progressed, this would also become another formal charge against Ajayi. In the eyes of investigators, it seemed that a hidden layer of horror had begun to emerge there. Additionally, they discovered that Ajayi had written a book titled Forged Identity. The story revolved around a teenager named Ezekiel, torn between getting involved with a criminal group or not, while trying to escape the violence around him. What alarmed the police team was the fact that in the plot, two characters are killed and burned, a macabre coincidence too striking to ignore, considering what had happened to Mackenzie. The book was being sold on Amazon, and the author even maintained a Facebook page to promote it. Of course, when he realized the police were closing in, that page quickly disappeared. But for investigators, it made no difference. Everything had already been archived and documented. And the irony was evident. Someone with professional experience in technology, someone who knew exactly how systems work, truly thought that deleting a page would solve anything. Another detail that made the case even more unsettling was the way it all began. Once again, a predator had managed to reach an innocent person through a dating website. The platform, which was supposed to be used for safe and consensual connections, ended up putting the victim and the aggressor face to face. But the story didn't end there. That's when a man named Brian M.F. came forward. He had seen in the news that the police were after Ajayi and decided to contact them immediately. He had something important to report, something that had happened to him months earlier in April 2019, almost 3 months before Mackenzie's disappearance. He explained that Ajayi had hired his services. Brian worked as a builder and did home renovations because he wanted in a hurry to build some kind of basement or additional room inside the house. It was a relatively small space with a hidden access door. Up to that point, nothing too alarming. A client wanting a private room, okay, that happens. But what came next made Brian immediately suspicious and uncomfortable. Ajayi began requesting extremely strange things. He wanted a digital lock installed, acoustic insulation, and even concrete hooks fixed to the walls. At that point, Brian was already frightened, to say the least. He decided to ask the client directly what the purpose of such a small, enclosed, hidden space was. Ajayi's answer was, to say the least, absurd. He said he wanted to use the room to hide alcoholic beverages because his girlfriend was a member of a church that disapproved of alcohol consumption, and so he needed to keep the bottles out of sight. The explanation made no sense whatsoever, but that was what he claimed, and by all indications, he was talking about Mackenzie herself. And it didn't stop there. Ajayi insisted that the acoustic insulation was necessary so he could listen to music in the room without anyone noticing. Hearing all of this, Brian decided that the best course of action was to end the conversation and quietly leave. He invented that he had another large project underway and wouldn't have time for this job. He left with a bad feeling, thinking that everything was extremely abnormal. And it stayed in his mind. He never heard from Ajayi again until he saw the news months later when the man's name appeared as a suspect in Mackenzie's disappearance. At that moment, everything that had previously seemed merely bizarre suddenly made sense. After the builder's account, another person came forward, Ajayi's ex-wife. She appeared due to the media coverage of the case. She described him as controlling, becoming aggressive whenever things didn't go his way. She said he didn't allow her to talk to other people or go out alone. After the divorce, according to her, Ajayi even threatened to kidnap and kill her, which led her to cut off all communication with him. And as if all of this weren't already enough to show the kind of danger he posed, a third woman also came forward to the police after Mackenzie's body was found. She reported that she had met Ajayi on a dating app. The name of the app was not disclosed, and that after a few conversations, he invited her to his home, claiming he would prepare a romantic dinner. The meeting actually took place on March 10, 2018. When she arrived, everything seemed normal. They talked, ate something, and then, while sitting on the sofa watching TV. During the encounter at Ayulola's house, the woman reported that he began behaving aggressively and inappropriately, forcing physical contact and preventing her from moving away. She said she was bitten while trying to escape. Based on her account, Ajayi was formally charged with aggravated kidnapping and sexual assault crimes. Cornered by the accumulated evidence, including phone records, messages, neighbor testimonies, victim statements, and traces found in his residence and in Logan Canyon, Ajayi pled guilty to first-degree aggravated murder and desecration of a corpse in connection with Mackenzie's death. In exchange, prosecutors dropped the charges of aggravated kidnapping and obstruction of justice, removing the possibility of the death penalty. Another aspect of the plea deal required him to fully detail the events of that night. According to his own account, on June 17, 2019, Mackenzie landed at Salt Lake City Airport and took a rideshare to Hatch Park, where she met Ajayi around 3 a.m. Before the meeting, he had turned off the security cameras at his home, suggesting premeditation. After meeting her, he took her to his house in the Fair Park neighborhood. At the residence, Mackenzie was tied up and, according to Ajayi, suffered strangulation that resulted in her death. Subsequently, he buried part of her belongings and body in the backyard, while other items were discarded in a nearby river. The next day, around 9 a.m., he purchased gasoline, captured by surveillance cameras, returned to the residence, and burned the remains and objects in an improvised fire, which produced an odor noticed by neighbors. After attempting to destroy evidence at the residence, Ajayi transported what remained of the body to Logan Canyon, approximately 100 kilometers from his home, and buried the remains in an isolated area. Despite all attempts at concealment, a detailed investigation quickly led to his capture. Ayola Ajayi's trial began in October 2020. He attended the hearing accompanied by his lawyer, maintaining a composed demeanor, and the courtroom scene reflected the seriousness of the case. All evidence, testimonies, and confessions were presented, allowing the process to proceed to conviction. During the trial, Ayola Ajayi appeared wearing a blue mask amid the pandemic, appearing somewhat disconnected from the environment. He answered questions in a low voice, confirming that he understood the proceedings, but as he was not fluent in English, he relied on an interpreter who translated everything into Yoruba, his native language. This ensured there was no doubt that he fully understood what was happening in court. Throughout the process, one of his lawyers admitted that the crime had been premeditated, although they did not specify how long in advance. The prosecutor reflected on the unusual nature of the case, noting that most murders have clear motivations, such as money, revenge, or a sense of justice. However, in Ajayi's case, he committed the crime without personally knowing the victim, leading the prosecutor to suggest that he may have acted out of curiosity or a desire to experience killing. The prosecutor also highlighted Ajayi's history, including episodes of violence against his ex-wife and another woman, as well as previous complicated situations, such as incidents at the university. According to the prosecution, all of this indicated that he had already demonstrated problematic behaviors that could have escalated to the crime. On October 23, 2020, Ajayi was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for Mackenzie's murder, in addition to 5 years in prison for desecration of a corpse. Upon hearing the sentence, he quietly expressed remorse for what he had done, but acknowledged that his words could not bring Mackenzie back. Following the conviction, he was transferred to a prison to serve his sentence and await trials related to other associated cases. On December 3, 2020, the trial concerning the crimes of kidnapping and sexual assault committed in 2018 took place. Ajayi pleaded guilty as part of a deal with the prosecution and was sentenced to 1 to 15 years in prison for these crimes. Regarding the 19 crimes involving minors discovered on his computer, Ajayi pleaded not guilty. As part of the same judicial agreement, these cases were ultimately dismissed. Although controversial, this decision formally closed the proceedings related to him, consolidating the conviction for the murder and other crimes directly connected to Mackenzie Lueck. Mackenzie Lueck's parents never accepted Ayola Ajayi's apologies. In interviews after the conviction, the young woman's father expressed the deep pain of knowing he would never see his daughter again, that she would never marry, and that he would not have grandchildren. He described Mackenzie as a sweet, kind-hearted person, always concerned about others, and recalled that she had her whole life ahead of her. The loss was devastating for him. In his view, Ajayi should spend the rest of his life in prison, and he stated that he awaited the day when Utah correctional authorities would confirm the full execution of his daughter's murderer's sentence. Mackenzie's mother, though calmer, also expressed her grief and frustration. She said that, even satisfied with the sentence, she knew it would neither erase the pain nor bring her daughter back. The case underscores the complexity of online meetings and the importance of precautions. By arranging a meeting in an isolated location during the early hours, Mackenzie became the victim of someone with criminal intentions. The situation serves as a warning about the potential risks of the virtual world, highlighting the need for caution and safety when interacting with strangers. Mackenzie Lueck's case remains a tragic reminder of the vulnerabilities of online encounters and the importance of always taking protective measures when meeting people through dating platforms.